Chris Langdon. I'm a professor in the Department of Fish and Wildlife and Coombs, Coastal Oregon Marine Experiment Station, and I'm based here at the Hatfield Center. So I've been here for probably about 35 years now. So I arrived in 1985. And most of the work we do here is focused on shellfish, but we do have work on microparticulate diets for marine fish larvae. And we have worked on abalone and a red seaweed called dulse. And dulse is, as some of you may know, is a very hot topic at the moment. And we're basically working on that as a food for the future. It has a high protein content and is environmentally very sustainable. I think you've had a review of some of the different programs here within the Hatfield, and the sort of the bigger picture that I want to focus on is the importance of aquaculture globally. And we are reaching a point now in the world where our population is approaching 7.5 billion, and by 2050 we may be 10 billion or a little more than that. So in a very short space of time, we're going to continue to see this explosion in population numbers. And the problem is that we're pretty maxed out in terms of our capture fisheries from the ocean. So most of our fish stocks are at maximum sustainable levels or are overfished. There's very little latitude for obtaining more fish from the ocean. And so this is where aquaculture comes into play, where with the growth of the population, human population, and obviously our increased standard of living, we're going to need more protein from the ocean if we're going to maintain our current levels of fish consumption. And in some parts of the world, fish consumption is a very important part of the diet. Here in the United States and in Western world, we get a lot of protein from terrestrial sources, from particularly domesticated animals like chickens and beef and pigs. But a lot of the world depends to much greater extent on fish as part of their diet, particularly in Asian countries. So this figure here illustrates this point I'm trying to make about the limitations of our capture fisheries and the importance of aquaculture. So here you can see a figure here. This only goes to 2010, unfortunately, but the trends continue. You can see in about sort of 1986 or so, we reached a maximum from our capture fisheries, which is in the light blue. And since then, we've more or less plateaued out. So there hasn't been a lot more production of fish from wild fisheries. But what you see in this dark area here is this growth of aquaculture. And we're at a point now, this is 1 decade from the end of this graph, we're at a point now where about half of the fish produced globally is coming from aquaculture. And this trend is going to continue where more and more of our fish and shellfish is going to come from aquaculture. So here in the United States, we import most of the fish that we consume. So about 85% of the value of the fish and shellfish we consume in this country is imported. And it's imported from countries, particularly in Asia, where those populations are also expanding and the quality of life is increasing, and so their demand is going to be much higher in the future. So the question then becomes is, can we still import fish and shellfish from these countries, or would it be a better strategy to try to grow our own fish and shellfish to a greater extent than we're doing now? And my view is that we should do the latter. So we should become more self-sufficient, improve our seafood security, if you like, by improving aquaculture in this country. And so we rank globally, I think, about let's see, I think it's in about the 40th or so country in terms of aquaculture production. It's very, very low compared with most other countries. So we've got a long way to go. In my view, as I mentioned earlier, seaweed aquaculture has a tremendous potential. So the dulse that we grow here has a protein content of about 20%. And you can grow it in the coastal environment or in land-based tanks, and it cleans the water as it grows. It removes excess carbon dioxide, and it removes nutrients that have accumulated in our coastal waters and things that we really want to get rid of. So this is an area that I think has a tremendous potential in the future. The other area that I'm very interested in is shellfish, and here on the west coast, marine aquaculture of oysters and clams is really the biggest marine aquaculture activity. The problem we have is that shellfish are very susceptible to effects of ocean acidification, which is another trend that's unfortunately increasing as we progress through this century, with greater amounts of carbon dioxide pumped into the atmosphere. And so we've been very proactive here in our oyster breeding program, the Molluscan Broodstock Program, working with colleagues on main campus, George Wardbusser and Burke Hales particularly, to try and develop new ways of tackling this problem. And so Burke Hales has developed a really sophisticated way of measuring ocean acidification and correcting for that by adding buffers. And most of our West Coast hatcheries now are applying that technology. And then we have a breeding program here, the Molluscan Broodstock Program, that is designed to develop some resistant stocks of oysters, the Pacific oyster, that is going to do better under ocean acidification in the future.